G'day folks, and welcome to Tal TV. This is the second video that I'm doing, and it's the second YouTube video that I'm doing. And this video will have a different theme and it'll have a different point than the first video that I did. The first video was more about watches, and it's going to be part of if it does evolve, part of a series that's about watches, wardrobe, where you live, how you constitute yourself. But this video today takes a totally different angle and looks at a different thing that I think when I say what it is, people are going to think it's crazy. But when I explain my understanding of it and how it works, I think people might start to sit back and think, well, maybe there's some sense to what sounds like a mad idea. And the series that I'm going to do on this, because it's quite a big topic, I'm going to call Heal Thyself. And it's about, and here's the madness of it, but I'm going to explain everything. Nothing is held back. Everything is explained. I'm not doing this to make an income from this video. I'm doing this because I have an idea that is valuable and I want to put it out there. And so there's no holding back on what this is about, but the subject being quite large will be, will be more than just this. Okay, so the idea is this, the idea that, and I put forward this proposition, that and I can only speak as a male, but I'm sure it is possible with females as well. In fact, it may be even have a greater possibility with females because they are a more sophisticated form of human being. And I say that simply because they have the ability to procreate. That is, that they can actually create another human being, where us men, the best we can do is a shit. And sorry, I'm just joking. But what I'm saying is women have a much more sophisticated being, physical being than we have. So perhaps what I'm going to suggest as a man from my own perspective may even have a greater potential with women. But speaking on my own behalf and speaking on what I understand and what I've experienced, I put forward this proposition that it is possible for men over 35, men over 40, men over 50, and men like myself who are approaching 60 years of age to be able to rejuvenate their bodies through a combination of three things linked to two effects. The three things being activity, diet, and rest. The two effects, well, firstly, the prime effect is to elicit, to get, to make happen an endocrine system response. That is a glandular response that results in a hormonal activity within the body. And the second thing that we seek to elicit is through the activity, diet, and rest, physiological change, a measurable physiological change. For someone starting out, that would be in reproduction of new cells and increasing the body's amount of mitochondria, which is a cell component that has to do with the energy exchange and has a lot to do with the aging process. There are other physiological responses, but without going into those at the moment, what I'm putting forward as an idea is that, well, I'll put it this way, there's no reason why a 50-year-old and a 60-year-old can't have the kind of physiology and movement ability of, I'll temper what I'm saying, of a person in their 30s. My personal experience, and I'm going to try to avoid going into my own personal routines. I'm going to speak more generally about what this is about. And the reason I'm avoiding my own specific routines is because routines tend to be, like the routine needed from an individual tends to come from their own needs, and different routines are needed for different individuals. And at the start of this video, I said that the series of things I want to put forward I'm calling them Heal Thyself. And that is a process. It's a process that I've personally undergone. It's a process where you not only learn how the body works, but more importantly, with that knowledge, you apply that to how you work your body in order to get the responses. And the process is transcending, because as you go through the physical improvements and adjustments, and sometimes, some pretty difficult periods to get to where you need to go to, you'll also go through changes in posture, changes in sense of balance, changes which straight away affects your awareness, and straight away it affects your perception, and perception being reality. It also affects the perception of others, because when they're seeing you transforming and being better balanced, better postured, more aware, more alert, and all these things convert to something that people call confidence. But putting away that word confidence, where some people like to use confidence in the sense of fake it till you make it. Nothing I'm talking about here is fake. What I'm talking about is a series of activity that results in repairing the body and rejuvenating the body, and returning a person to a younger state of being. And part of that process also involves, as you start to improve and as you start to go through processes, you'll start to do physical activity that you used to do when you were in your 20s, that you haven't done for a long time now that you're in your 40s or your 50s. And those activities, and remembering those activities, and reacquainting yourself with those activities, also results in neuron activity in the brain, as the brain starts to command the body, or through the brain you start to command your body or instruct your body to act in a particular way. The brain will actually start to create or recreate or repair neuron paths, and those neuron paths will end up in an increase in the connections within the brain. So the brain actually will go through a physical metamorphosis as well. And this whole process I put to you is a process that I personally have experienced, and I've personally done a lot of research, and I've put myself through rigorous activity, rest and diet in order to get the results that have come from it. And well, to be able to, as I am, I'm in my mid-50s, my later end of the mid-50s. I'm approaching 56, I'll be 57 next year. I'm approaching the 60 age group. And to be approaching that age group and to recover a physiology, an ability to move the way I used to move when I was in my 20s, is rejuvenating at the very least. It's more than that though, because when that process of rejuvenation is happening in an older self, I have all the experience and I have all the wisdom of age, from all the terrible mistakes I've made, to be able to put that ability in a different context and to get a greater potential from that ability. At the stage that I'm at now, the transitions are taking physical form, and they've now consolidated in physical form. It takes a bit of time, it takes a fair bit of time, but it took me, from when I began this process 5 years ago, it took 5 years to get to this point now, but the results have been pronounced. People see it, and more importantly than what people see is I feel it, and I'm doing it, and I'm aware of it, and my relationship with how I move, and my relationship with the things around me, and how I'm viewing, and the potential that I'm viewing from my own ability, is evolving, changing, developing. It's going back and remembering, but it's doing more than that. There's something happening that's quite amazing. And so I'm putting forward this idea, and one of the things that drove me to this idea, or brought me to a point where, you know, like I had a gut feeling that this was a possible thing to do, and I've always had a gut feeling this is a possible thing to do because I have had a body my whole life. I have at times trained in ways where I've gotten really, really fit and gotten really flexible and gotten really fast and had great balance. And I've also gone through periods where I've deteriorated myself and periods where I've been sedentary and the form has changed. But the recovery rate now that I've gone through, it's been phenomenal. It's been absolutely utterly phenomenal, and I am of the feeling I am of the beginning of that recovery, that now it's taking a more solid form, that recovery is going. And I'm putting to you that this is not a freak thing that I can do. This is a what's the word? This is a propensity within each and every one of us. If we start to understand our bodies better, and if we start to understand, more importantly, how our bodies work, but how to work our own body, and how to repair it and regenerate it, and you know, and it's real. It can be done. And if you're in your mid-30s, going to your 40s, going into your 50s and into your 60s, I think what I'm saying is very pertinent and relevant to you. But even if you're in your 20s, I think it's worth listening to, because there's a process that if you're prepared for from an early age will make the later ages easier to be able to go back in time and be younger again by being able to take command of your body and your will and exercise yourself to better health. It's more than just exercise. It's not as much about training and sweating and how I look, or how much you weigh. I mean, they're all part of it, but that's not the process. The process is really a process of learning how to move again, because that's the key to it all. Just being able to move. That is to be able to, and imagine this. Imagine being 60 and being able to sprint like a jackrabbit. Imagine being 60 and being able to go down to a field and just, you know, without any shoes on, in temperature of up to 40 degrees, which Celsius, which is I think it's 100 odd degrees Fahrenheit. It's really hot. Be able to sprint backwards and forwards over 25, 50 and 100 meters, and to be able to do 2,000-3,000 meters worth of that kind of running. Of course, when you do that kind of training, and you know, imagine that and realize it is possible. I know it's possible, and it's more than just possible. At later stages, you know, as your body starts to repair and realign and reinvigorate itself, and go back in time to be a younger body, an older man with a younger body. You'll find that there'll be other things you'll do that you just, you know, like recently for me, and I'm trying to avoid going back to my own personal experience, but I'm going to add this. Recently for me, my field training in sprinting, and sprinting hasn't been an easy process for me, because I tried, when I tried 5 years ago to recover my physicality, and I went onto a field, I injured my right Achilles tendon to a point of chronic injury. And so I had to, over that period, over the last probably 2.5 years, before I could get to the stage where I could sprint. And even now at the stage that I sprint, there's still a certain restraint I place on myself not to aggravate that injury, but I had to repair that injury. And that in itself, to do that naturally, again, it's a process of activity, rest and diet, and I'm happy to discuss all these things and to explain how I see them coming forward. And then the process is always a relearning process. It's a process where you're continually learning. My personal, sorry for being personal about this, but that's the only point that I've got at this moment to be able to discuss from. one of the things that recently, like today, I went to do my training, and I started my training, and I got to a point where, because I've done 3 days in a row where it's been sprinting in a park, heavy bag work, heavy weight work, and enjoying it all. And enjoying it because remember at the start of this video I said that there were 3 things: activity, rest and diet. And there were 2 responses that you were trying to get. Well, one of the responses I said was the endocrine system, the glandular system that secretes the hormones within our body. Well, what I do when I train that hard, to enjoy that hard, is I experience, well, firstly, the thing that we all talk about is the endorphin releases, which is a form of morphine that the body naturally makes to be able to go through pain thresholds and be able to, it's a survival mechanism thing they say we have, but our bodies are, I think, more than just things to survive. I think our bodies were really made to have evolved to be things to do more than just survive. We have evolved to be things to thrive and to continue to thrive. And anyhow, that endorphin release first up, that morphine hit that comes from training. After the morphine hit, there are dopamine and serotonin releases, amongst other things, such as increases in testosterone, greater pituitary gland activity, resulting in growth hormones being reinvigorated throughout the body, and the results are quite surprising and phenomenal. Anyway, sorry, I forgot where I was going with that, because I kind of start going off at an angle and then come back to another angle. But I find this to be a fascinating process of rejuvenation. And so what I learnt today, which is, the point I'm making, is part of heal thyself. Part of learning how to work the body is actually learning all the time and being able to question what you're doing, and knowing when it's time to change something that you're doing, knowing when the time is that you plateau, knowing the time is when you've gone too hard. Well, on the 3rd day, I can't remember if it was the 3rd or 4th day in a row, and the last 3 days I've been going onto a park to do my sprint training, and I've been putting a harness with a tire and dragging a tire with me while I've been sprint training, and getting some really, really good hormonal releases from that, getting some really good glandular activity through the endocrine system through that. Well, today when I went for my training session, because I'm transitioning at the moment from activity that was very, very, very high intensity interval training designed for rapid twitch muscle balance, because it's the second thing I said. Remember, I said it was diet, activity and rest, and that there were 2 things. You were after an endocrine system release, that is, you want to get your internal glandular system to respond. You want that to come alive too. You want that to rejuvenate, and also that there be measurable physical change. And I mentioned mitochondria at the start, and mitochondria often is best developed through strength training, which is slower twitch muscles. Well, the rapid twitch training is a different change that is trying to be affected. And the reason this change is trying to be affected is, firstly, to keep the body moving and changing and alive, and also to keep the brain active, but also to keep the endocrine system at a point where it's not reaching an activity level in an exercise system that it becomes used to, that it plateaus on, and it ceases to release. Okay, that's really important. That endocrine system is the fountain of youth inside of each and every one of us. It is that system is a system that turns that system that is critical to the growth of a baby, to a child, and then that system kicks in, and it's got to do with puberty, and it's got to do with adolescence, it's got to do with the becoming of the human being. And that system, because we can't see it, we don't realize that when we stop using our bodies, when we slow down, we also slow the endocrine system down. And when we slow that system down, it can become unhealthy, it can become clogged, it can become unbalanced. And that is the fountain of youth. That is in each and every one of us. And so for example, in today's activity, what I learnt was after doing 3 or 4 days of pretty heavy, hard training. I mean, it was pretty insane. Like people that would see the kind of training I'd be doing on one side of the day weren't seeing what I was doing at the other side of the day, which was like doubly insane. Because when you go into a park and you're mapping out the field into 25s and 50s and 100 meters, and then you're doing your sprints, and then you're doing half of them with a tire tied to you, and you have to change how you move, and you have to lean forward, and your body's screaming as it's going through that. But while it's screaming, it's also getting a nice endorphin hit. It's getting that nice morphine release, and when you finish it and you kind of wander back to the other end to do your next lap, you're also experiencing a lot of the post-hormonal good effects of dopamine and serotonin. So, but what I found today was I found that I had reached a point of exhaustion where the training I was doing wasn't working for me. I couldn't get to the levels I needed to get that internal endocrine system, that internal glandular hormonal release that I've been feeding the body, that I've been activating. And that's simply because I broke one of the 3 basic rules, and that is I didn't rest. I didn't give myself a rest day after, I think, 3 or 4 days. I didn't give myself a rest day. So what I'm proposing, what I'm putting forward, what I'm arguing is that a man in his, and I can only speak from my own experience, in his 50s going to his 60s, can rejuvenate the body through a series of through his activity, rest, and diet, and by affecting an endocrine system response. So it's not just about training to get a sweat. It's about training to a point where you go through that pain threshold, or you go through that threshold where the body needs to change to be able to do what you want it to do. And so there's an internal system that's gone, oh God, got to get behind this. Oh, he's going through too much pain, give him some endorphin. Oh, it's over. Reward him with a little bit of serotonin or dopamine. And there's ways in which those things can, you can control those releases as well. And that's all part of this whole idea I have of, I'm putting forward, of healing thyself. And I think there are, you will see occasional guys that are older that can move like they're a hell of a lot younger. And then you'll see guys that were once athletes or great sportsmen that suddenly they're aged and they've got beer guts, and they're slow, and they're injury ridden, and they're sitting down and they're not what they were, or they're just aging at the same rate that everybody else ages at. And that's got to do with being active and controlling your activity and activating your endocrine system, activating that internal system, that fountain of youth that's within, and being able to facilitate that with diet. And diet is not just about what you eat. Diet, like for example, for me, diet also includes vitamin D through the sun, like taking in the vitamin D at the right time, so that, because the vitamin D facilitates oxidization helps to facilitate the physiological change that comes with training, and it helps the body in its rebuilding and its rejuvenation and its recovery. A diet to me is also air. Air is diet. So like the kind of breathing I do if I'm in a gym doing weights is different than the breathing I do if I'm running 10 kilometers. That's different than the breathing I'm doing if I'm running 100, if I'm sprinting 100 meters, and that's a different kind of way of taking in the air. So diet is not just about what you eat. It's also about what you breathe, how you take that air in, how you process that air during the activity. And it's also about absorbing the sunlight, and I'm probably leaving things out of that, but getting a greater understanding of oneself also means getting a greater understanding of what's around, and how to do that. So I'm putting this idea forward, I think, because it's something that I've done without really so much taking notes and keeping some kind of script and having a system to it. More something that I've become, that I've made something that I know about what to do, and I instinctively know, or if I'm getting it wrong, I can recognize how what I'm doing or how I'm approaching something is getting it wrong, and being able to recognize where that error is and correct that error in order to continue the process of regenerating the body. And I don't think it's like, well, when I put it like that, it kind of sounds crazy, but there's a few other things I want to add to this. It's not like just these are just ideas. I haven't written this down in order for me to have a coherent discussion with you about this. What I'm doing is I'm just putting it out there as it comes from me, because I think I ought to know it well enough not to need to write it down and not to need to be able to have it scripted. And so one of the other things is okay, so why, how is it the body has this ability? Well, you know, the body's a product of an evolution system that we can trace back 4.6 billion years from single cell bacterias and archaeans, I think they were called. They were another single cell thing that was out there, and you know, these single cell things, you know, continue the process of regeneration and reactivity and into multiple cells, and you know, bang, you know, here we have the human being, which is arguably the pinnacle of that evolution system. We're very much a part of it, and we're very much still reliant on it, and we very much still need the bacteria, and we still need the things that we sometimes think of as germs, but sometimes they're more than just germs. They facilitate and they help us, and they're part of our being. But we are the product of 4.6 billion years worth of evolution. You know, when I see a guy who's got a double chin driving a Ferrari, I don't see a rich man. I see a guy in an expensive car. I see a guy who's got an expensive car and who's enjoying his expensive car. But while he's driving an expensive car, you know, with a gut and with, you know, whatever, what you know, being a bit lazy about who he is, he's inside a body that is so much more sophisticated than that Ferrari. It makes a Ferrari look like something less than the Stone Age. Like, this body that we have is, it's a mind-blowingly amazing machine of the gods, if I can use that term. And I know I'm mixing things. I'm talking about evolution one minute, I'm talking about machine of the gods the next, but it really is an amazing, amazing thing. And then there's the other thing. I just want to throw this out there too. Why is it that as a culture, we've grown used to the idea that, you know, a male is middle age of 40, is becoming old at 60, you know, retires at 65, you know, is gone by 80, is dead, gone and buried by 80. Why is it that we have that as part of our process? And I think there's a few reasons for it. I think firstly, you know, there's been centuries and millennia where our civilization and our races have not had education, and we have not had an understanding of ourselves, and I don't think that was really as necessary. But there was also kind of periods where there was a lot of savagery, and there still is a period of savagery and war, and there's a lot of damage done within society. But I think from a modern era, what it is that makes us think of ourselves in this timeline where, you know, by 60 you're an old man, has a lot to do with the Industrial Revolution, and has got a lot to do with how business and government structured in order for society to progress, and how they viewed the individuals, and how individuals were like, okay, you know, you get a job by the time you're 18 or 19 or you're 20 or whatever, and you know, you get married, you have a mortgage. Mortgage is literally, I think it's Latin for contract, death contract. And so, but you get a mortgage for like 30 years or whatever, and that's the time you pay your house off. And by that time you're 50, and you know, you're 55, you're 60, you're approaching retirement. By the time you've retired, if you have your superannuation or if you have to go into pension, you've got 10, maybe 20 years. Some people have less, of course. Some people, very few people have more, but you know, and so there was a whole way of thinking that became an accepted way of thinking, and we're still burdened with that because we're coming into a new age and a new era. But there's still the standard beliefs and the standard customs and practices and accepted facts of that era, that 20th century and 19th century and 18th century era that brought us to our point, to where we are now. This idea has given rise to another concept, and that is this thing that of aging population, and how an aging population is a burden to our society. And I just think that has to change. The idea that an aging population is a burden is something that's coming from the 17th, 18th and 19th, 20th century. It's something that's industrial revolution. Aging population that understands and can rejuvenate itself, an aging population that can be vital and productive beyond 50 and 60 and 70, even 80. I'd like to be productive, till I die, and I don't plan on that, for a long time. I'm hoping I'll hit 100, and I'm hoping I'll get, well past that. I don't want to curse myself because there's inevitable things that happen, and you can get a terminal disease or whatever. But my experience at the moment as a guy approaching 60 is I've managed to go through a process where I've rejuvenated and reactivated and changed myself for the better. And the process is really transitional. The process is more than transitional. It transcends you. There's things that happen, and it feeds upon itself. I don't know, like there's so much to it that I just think there's got to be a point where I say, that's it for now. And I'm going to say that's it for now, but afterwards I'm probably going to think, oh, I should have said this, and I should have said that, and I should have added this. So forgive me for that, but I don't have an audience for this video. I don't know who to reach out for, so I hope if you've liked it, I hope that if you've listened this far, I hope if you think there's something valuable in what I'm saying, that you'll share the video. So I can, because I want to do another one. I want to talk about more specific things. I want to address particular issues and start to focus on particular processes and where to begin and what kind of changes and things to consider and processes to undergo. There's things that you just while you're changing, while you're working yourself, and you might be like, as I was, as I was at a heavy weight from a sedentary period with poor respiration, with weakened muscles, and more importantly, with weak points, Achilles, greater trachea, knees, weak points that were crippling, right? To be able to repair those things and rejuvenate those things and to be able to rebuild, to be able to lose the weight. Just losing the weight in itself, like people talk about how much better or how much more confident they feel. But to me, the important thing about everything I do in this regard is that it affects how I am able to move. That I can run, that I can swim, that I can jump, that if I fall over, I can bounce back up, or even better, if I fall over, I can roll and keep moving forward. And in the process of that, the transcending that you undergo, it's just kind of like crazy, phenomenal, that you need to experience to appreciate. But as an example, like an activity where suddenly you're losing unnecessary weight that you've carried because of a sedentary period and because of poor diet. Wonder as that weight's getting lost, because that fat is also carrying testosterone. The body, the pituitary and the testicles and the endocrine system is talking to itself, going, hey, you used to have a lot of testosterone because it was sensed within the body and not produce it, but now that it's dropping off, it's suddenly going, oh, you need to lift those levels again. And you're also, because the endocrine system's working and your blood system's flowing better, you're sweating more, you're eating healthier, you're also flushing and getting rid of a lot of stuff, and that's kind of begging your system to keep producing more in order to keep up with what the body needs. And so there's vibrancy coming out of that. So this is a subject that for me is deeply close and deeply personal. It's deeply close because I've had to undergo a personal transition myself, but I have to say this transition is something that anyone can do that is willing to put the effort and to do, and at the end of the day, to be able to rejuvenate yourself at the end of the day. Sorry, but you know, where you are at the moment, to be able to rejuvenate yourself, so you're more active with your family, you're more active with your work, you're feeling better, you have more energy, you're more confident, your brain's kind of like rebuilt itself along the way. All these things, they're just wonderful. And anyway, so I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I've been doing this pretty much on my own, so I haven't actually like really thought about how to reach out to people to get this out there. So I hope if you like, you share, and you tune in next time and you subscribe, and we can talk about how to begin the process, or we can talk about how to prepare for the process, or we can talk about stages of the process that you might be going to. I am going to disable comments in the video, but I am going to put my email address, and you can just email me your thoughts, and I'll have a Facebook link to my Facebook page as well, so you can message me on Facebook. Let's, you know, hope you like this, hope that you connect, hope that it makes you think, and hope that it inspires you to look at yourself and to ask yourself what you can do for yourself in order to make yourself into the best version of yourself that you can be. That's it for now. This is Tal TV. This series is going to be called Heal Thyself, because it's about your ability to be able to heal yourself. It's not about me being able to say to you, hey, here's a program, and trying to sell you a program or trying to sell you a diet. I'm not going to do that stuff. What it's about learning how the body works and how to work the body, and rejuvenating yourself through activity, diet, and rest. That's all for now. Thanks very much. That's Tal, over and out.